Good. All right. So we had talked Jeff Bezos yesterday. We got almost into Stephen Hawking. Now I want to show you guys a little bit of this. I don't want to spend the whole time on it because it's a longer video. So we'll watch a little bit and then jump into something else here momentarily. But just to give you guys an idea of how human capital this guy was. So there was physical capital helping him communicate and physical capital helping him move around. But human capital was his ideas. And again, we're not going to watch all of these, but give you an idea.
Thanks to him, we know more about black holes, life beyond the stars, and the theory of everything. Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 mind-blowing facts about Stephen Hawking.
But the discoveries of the Kepler mission suggest that there are billions of habitable planets in our galaxy alone.
For this list, we'll be focusing on one of the greatest minds in science by looking at a few fascinating facts about the man himself.
I made a boo-boo, and I gave it to Stephen Hawking.
Great. Another fainter.
Number 10. He believes in aliens.
Your estimation, what's the probability of finding intelligent alien life in the next 20 years and why?
The probability is low. Probably.
The universe is dizzyingly immense, something Stephen Hawking knows as much as anyone. With that in mind, Hawking thinks it's very likely that intelligent alien life exists somewhere. However, while the cosmologist believes in that possibility, he also thinks humans should be careful about trying to contact them. Why? Because he posits that such life forms would likely try to destroy us, or at least ravage Earth for resources. In 2010, Hawking publicly stated his concern, comparing invading alien civilizations and the effect on humans to Columbus landing in America and the effect on Native Americans.
So if aliens ever visit us, I think the outcome would be much as when Christopher Columbus first landed in America. In that frame of
For years, he's been making public appearances and guest starring on popular TV shows like The Simpsons, Futurama, The Big Bang Theory, and Star Trek.
The day that apple fell on my head was the most momentous day in the history of science.
You know, the Apple story again.
These cameos often showcase his staggering intelligence and trademark dry humor, alongside some light, good-natured self-deprecation.
Silence. I don't need anyone to talk for me, except his voice box. You have clearly been corrupted by power.
As a result, he's become something of a household name for people of all ages. References to the scientist can also be found in a number of songs, comics, video games, movies, and more, proving he really has permeated nearly every facet of pop culture.
That's nice. Too bad it's wrong.
Number mediocre student.
Stephen, are you aware that you voluntarily embarked on a PhD in physics?
If you ever get a chance, the movie actually is very good. Theory of Everything. It kind of goes through his whole life and how he develops. And he was married twice.
College in England. Oh, I thought we slept through the induction or something.
Like many of our greatest thinkers, school was initially not a great time for Stephen Hawking. He was, at best, middle of the pack when it came to his grades. Self-bored with classes and in need of social interaction. In an effort to try something new, he joined the school's boat club. Before his illness, he was one of the most important members of the crew, the coxswain, which, with his strong voice and slight build, was an ideal role for him. Hawking actually proved to be a bit reckless, steering his crew through narrow spaces, and often damaging the boats as a result. One of his crewmates even labeled him the adventurous type. The operation robbed him of his ability to speak. He eventually began using a specialized computer program to communicate, and the synthetic voice he adopted as his own spoke with an American accent.
But then I brought a speech synthesizer, which was designed for a telephone directory service.
There have since been many upgrades to his method of communication, but Hawking has kept this voice as part of his identity. It's even been copyrighted.
I don't like your tone.
If you are looking for trouble, you found it.
Yeah, just try me, you.
Number 4, he's a prolific writer. even though he can't physically write or speak.
My old system worked well, and I wrote 5 books with it, including A Brief History of Time, which was on the Sunday Times bestseller list for over 5 years, longer than any other book. The Bible and Shakespeare don't count, apparently.
Though he was already famous within the scientific community, Stephen Hawking truly came to the public's attention in 1988 with the release of his seminal popular science book, A Brief History of Time. He had wanted to write a science book that would actually connect with readers, and he succeeded. Covering everything from black holes to quantum theory, it became a bestseller, spending almost 150 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list and selling over 10 million copies.
And it's been suggested that Stephen Hawking stole his brief history of time. My 4th grade paper.
However, what's even more impressive is the fact that this comprehensive work was completed after Hawking was almost fully paralyzed and unable to speak. He's since gone on to author many other books, including George's Secret Key to the Universe, a science book for children. Number 3, his speech synthesizer is state-of-the-art.
Who is talking to me right now? Is it you, or is it a sentient computer pretending to talk on your behalf?
It's me.
Although it's not his own, Stephen Hawking's synthesized voice is instantly recognizable to anyone who hears it.
It's a little hard to read your tone of voice. When you say that, are you being sarcastic?
Yes.
That's because, despite his medical issues, his amazing speech-generating device allows him to communicate. The first model worked entirely via a clicker clutched in his hand, which let him select words and commands on a device attached to his wheelchair. However, ALS ravaged Hawking's body, ultimately robbing him of the use of his clicking hand. This resulted in an update that allowed him to choose words by moving his cheek muscle. As his condition declined further, a crack team at Intel added more updates thanks to much trial and error, ultimately making it possible for him to more quickly open documents, construct sentences, and prepare full lectures.
Now Intel had written a new program, ACAT, which uses predicted text to speed up writing.
Number 2, he's never won a Nobel Prize.
So again, we look at the human capital aspect, and it's absolutely amazing how intelligent that man was and what he provided scientifically wise. The Nobel Prize, by the way, the reason he hasn't gotten it was because he has a theory about black holes, but it's never been proven because we can't get close enough to a black hole to actually to see what's specifically happening. What's interesting about him too is at one point his theory was that the universe was expanding, and that radiation that was being emitted was called Hawking radiation. And then later on in his career, right, let's say maybe the last 10 years, he actually changed his theory and started talking about how the universe is potentially shrinking. So it's one of those, regardless, again, human brain capital, mental capacity. Now, the effectiveness of capital is huge in the sense that all the things that we have available to us, capital-wise, has made our life just so much easier to the point where when you guys aren't in an actual school classroom, you guys could be on your computers at home having a conversation or joining in to a visual, actual discussion. Right? Think of all the things that we use our computers for now. It's astronomical, right? The fact that I forced you to do one of the assignments digitally, right? We can now do that relatively easy compared to, think, 10 years ago. Who in here, by any chance, remembers dial-up internet? In your lifetime, it probably was when you were really little. But it used to be literally a phone line, and you would dial it in, and then if by some chance someone picked up the phone, they would hear this like screeching, really weird sound. Was the communication between the internet provider and your computer. And to download everything, there was no fiber optics, there was no Ethernet cables. You had to be plugged in all the time. Matter of fact, when Wi-Fi came around, everyone was like, wait, what? You don't have to be hooked into something? It became this huge thing. And even now, we struggle with it. Who here has a Wi-Fi printer in their house?
Well, mine has a Wi-Fi and it's a fax machine.
Yeah, right. Who in here was it work 100% of the time? Or is there like a time where like you can't find the network, can't find the printer, right? And then they have, it's just nonstop, right? think about your programs, all the potential technology advancements you have gotten over the years. The fact that I can text you guys via Remind and send you guys all a message all at the same time. It used to be when we first came up with the whole that Remind technology, I would actually have to go and get all of your phone numbers. There was a way for me to put them into an email, an Excel spreadsheet. I would get your phone numbers, I'd put it on a spreadsheet. I would then upload that to my email account, and then I would email a phone message to you via Excel. It was just really like this whole, and then I think right after I figured out how to do that, the following year Remind came out. It was actually a different name. It was, I can't remember the original name of it, but I think they minimized it. Kind of like Facebook. I'm not sure if you guys knew this, but Facebook originally was the Facebook. And then they finally just got rid of the and just made it Facebook. Remind was another Remind Classroom or Remind something, and then they were like, let's just make it Remind. So, who in here remembers PDAs? Not public displays of affection, but PDAs, like little planners, little digital planners that you guys could actually put. I didn't think so. You guys are now in the era where that was like, if your parents are cleaning up old technology, you might come across it. Or if you're like a big drawer of old technology. But what we had was, originally, you had PDAs, which was like your organizational, put your calendar, you have to put a program on your computer to sync to your PDA, and then you had your Outlook calendar would sync up, and that was really it. You might be able to put your contacts in there, and then if you want to listen to music, you'd switch over to your iPod. It was the old, like, round little, you guys know what I'm talking about? Where you actually spin your finger on a round little disc, and it would move through like the old, if you guys have the little nanos,
Oh, I have.
little ones.
Yeah, the one with the
Yeah.
camera.
And then if you wanted to, you could get a 180 gig hard drive iPod, and they were like really super, super thick. And then if you want to make a phone call, you either go to a landline phone, or if you had a cell phone, it was a separate thing. Like it was 3 separate pieces. And this lovely company, Apple, decided, you know what? Why do we have 3 separate things? Why don't we put them all into one place? And there was the iPhone. Right? And then and as soon as the iPhone came out, our world changed, because then the apps came out. I remember when they first came out, it was like 5,000 apps. Now they're at like what? 1.5 million apps available. I mean, it's just astronomically crazy. And that was Apple, not to mention Google, adding on other versions of the same apps. So time management, increased efficiency. Think about, well, here's a silly one. Who in here works McDonald's? Anybody ever work at McDonald's? Okay. Does anybody ever work fast food? Does anybody work fast food? Work at McDonald's? Okay. When I was your age, worked at McDonald's, and when I had to cook something, we would cook it. We had this big, huge bin on the other side of where I was cooking, and then I would make the sandwich. We would cook like 12. I think it's the same similar thing. And then you put it on the buns, and you actually put those ketchup and mustard and everything on it. You'd wrap it, or you at least put it up on, and then the manager or whoever was in charge would wrap it, and you put it in this big bin for about 20 minutes, and if no one bought it in 20 minutes, you threw it away. Now, I mean, if there's a rush, you're cooking it and you put it in that little plastic bin, right? And then they kind of make it to order, especially if it's slow. If it's slow, you're gonna throw it in there, and then how long do they leave it in there?
I mean, we kind of just do everything.
Okay,
We don't
so
really have a lot sitting out unless someone forgets to grab it.
so now it's a little bit different, right? For me, it was you just make it. The manager would say, "I think we're gonna need this much." So just in that sense, we've changed how we do fast food. Chipotle didn't exist. Like, there was no made-to-order places to go. If you wanted to get made-to-order food, you typically needed to go into the McDonald's to get the special orders. So again, increased efficiency. How much? Now this is a debatable one for me, because it says increased knowledge. I would debate that we have access to more knowledge. I'm not sure if we're necessarily smarter. I think we know more. I think we have more access to more information. Some people are smarter in certain areas, but I think, because if I asked you guys a question right now, what would most of you guys Unless I said, don't look at your phones, what would most of you guys do if I asked you a generic random question?
Think about it thoroughly. Best I can.
Okay. If I didn't say you couldn't use your phones, what might you do?
Come up with the best knowledgeable answer that you can think
Okay.
of. That would be kind of somewhat on topic of it.
All right. But if you're in a random conversation outside of my classroom and I asked you a question, you didn't know the answer. Like, I know I've seen that actress. Where have I seen her before? What would almost all of you guys do? Pull out your phone and go, oh, she was in that show. I knew it. I knew I saw her before. Which happens, I don't know how many times I do that when I'm watching a TV show. I know that person. When you pull up the TV show, and you're like, what? And then you go to filmography, and you're like, what was that? What was the cast? And there they are. And they played that character. Go for it.
So I just got it was last week. I got an email from Fitbit saying that now they're run by Google. That's weird. Because I never thought we done.
Yeah. What's there's actually corporations. There's type of corporations. There's mergers. So you have vertical, and you have horizontal, and then you have conglomerate ones. So like, in regards to Google buying Fitbit, it kind of makes sense because it's a digital thing. Fitbit may have gotten an offer from Google that was astronomical, thus the ABCs, the alphabet name. But let's say I was Verizon and I bought,
Sprint and T-Mobile.
well, there's that one, and that would be a vertical, right?
Yeah.
So I just bought something that was very similar to me. And that happens a lot with the cell phone companies. If by some chance Verizon buys AT&T, that would be, not vertical, horizontal. Vertical would be if AT&T bought all the iPhone products, like that production level, that would be a variation step of their product. So now, this little clip right here is just a good one. It's kind of a fun one. This is Louis C.K. Sadly, he is no longer really in the industry. He's made a couple of statements that aren't good. But what this one was about regarding film, our technology and the access that we have to it.
Back then, yeah. Those were simpler times, I think. I just feel like we may be going back to that, by the way. But in a way, good. Because when I read things like the foundations of capitalism are shattering, I'm like, maybe we need that. Maybe we need some time where we're walking around with a donkey with pots playing on the sides. You think that would just bring us back to reality? Yeah, because everything is amazing right now and nobody's happy. Like, in my lifetime, the changes in the world have been incredible. When I was a kid, we had a rotary phone. We had a phone that you had to stand next to, and we had to dial it. Yes. You don't realize how primitive, you're making sparks in a phone. And you actually would hate people with zeros in the numbers because it was more, like, oh, this guy got 2 zeros. Screw that guy. Why don't I? And then if they called and you weren't home, the phone would just ring lonely by itself. And then if you wanted money, you had to go in the bank for when it was open for like 3 hours. You had to stay in line, write yourself a check like an idiot. And then when you ran out of money, you just go, well, I can't do any more things now. I can't do any more things. That's it, yeah. That was it. And even if you had a credit card, the guy go, oh, he'd bring out this whole chunk, and he'd write, yeah, but you have to call the president to see if you have any money. It's all true, kids. You had to call the president, yeah. It was ridiculous. Yes. Do you feel that we now, in the 21st century, we take technology for granted? Well, yeah, because now we live in an amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots that don't care, because this is what people are like now. They got their phone, they're like, it won't. Give it a second. It's going to space. Can you give it a second to get back from space? Is the speed? It's true. It's true. Yeah. I was on an airplane and there was internet, high-speed internet on the airplane. That's the newest thing that I know exists. And I'm sitting on the plane. They go, open up your laptop. You can go on the internet. It's fast, and I'm watching YouTube clips. I'm in an airplane, and then it breaks down. And they apologize. The internet's not working. The guy next to me goes, "This is bull." Like how quickly the world owes him something. Yes. he knew existed only 10 seconds ago.
Right.
And on planes, flying is the worst one because people come back from flights and they tell you their story. And it's like a horror story. They act like their flight was like a cattle car in the 40s in Germany. That's how bad they make it sound.
Right.
They're like, it was the worst day of my life. First of all, we didn't board for 20 minutes.
Right.
And then we get on the plane and they made us sit there on the runway for 40 minutes. We had to sit there. Oh, really? What happened next? Did you fly through the air incredibly like a bird? Did you partake in the miracle of human flight, you non-contributing zero that you got to fly? You're flying! It's amazing! Everybody on every plane should just constantly be going, oh my God! Wow! Yes! You're flying! You're sitting in a chair in the sky.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
Now, Willie, it doesn't go back a lot. And it's really, here's the thing. People, like, they say there's delays on flights.
Yeah.
Delays, really? New York to California in 5 hours. That used to take 30 years to do that. And a bunch of you would die on the way there and have a baby. You need a whole different group of people by the time you got there. Now you watch a movie and you take a dump in your home.
Well, nicer way to say it than that, but yeah,
No.
Right. So I always laugh when I watch that one because I think of all the things, like who in here knows their phone number from home, their home phone number. Okay. Who in here knows their mom's phone number? Who in here knows their dad's phone number? Who in here knows their best friend's phone number? Who in here knows their who knows the school's phone number? Okay. What do we all typically do if we don't know a phone number? Look it up. Or if it's in our, if we know they're in our contacts, we'll just say, hey, whatever phone we're. If I say it, my phone's in response. Right? Because it's programmed. We just there was one, I can't remember the name of it. It was one of the text apps they had. Well, probably when you guys were like little ones came out, it was you know the name, but you would text a question to this messaging service and they would reply with the answer. I can't think of the name, but that was like the big thing. Who in here knows the difference between yellow pages and the white pages? Who in here knows what I'm talking about?
I do, but like, can I take a guess at it?
Go for it, yeah.
Isn't the yellow pages like companies and then like the white pages are like normal?
You got it, perfect. And you would get legit big different
I'm
phone
surprised
books.
about
And they
that.
would put in the white pages all of people's individual phone numbers, alphabetically. And then you'd actually have like little, it was almost like little cutouts where like the A's started, so you could flip right to the A's, and a little cutout where your finger would fit, flip to the B's, and you literally have to like flip through. And then if there was like 25 Smiths, you'd have to like figure out which one and which address was the one that you were going for. The other day I wanted to order food from one of the Chinese places in Brunswick. I just go to Google and I type in the name. It pops up, it gives me the address, it gives me the hours, it gives me the phone number. It gives me the menu, gives me the website, I mean, everything I want right there. So the stuff that we have, it's absolutely big. Has anybody used a rotary phone? Who here has seen a rotary phone? Okay. So the rotary phone is legit. It would have a 0 at the bottom here. And if I wanted to dial a 0, I'd have to take my finger, put it in a little 0, spin the whole thing around until I hit like a little metal stop. Let go of it, it would spin all the way back, and you would go back to the 0 again. So if it was like 1-800, you go 1, pull it down, 8, 0, 0, and then you have to go. But it was an old version. Before that, my grandma, actually, I had to laugh. My grandma and I once, before she passed away, we went over like all the things she lived through. First of all, she lived through the phone being created. So she was alive when it came around, and she said she would pick up the receiver and somebody would be on the line going, who would you like to talk to? And she would say, Susie so-and-so in wherever, and then they would connect to the operator in wherever, and that operator would then contact the person on the other side. It was just massive. So if you ever watch any of those, who in here has seen John Wick? And all three of them, at one point when they put the bounty out for him, you see the people, the ladies, they're like plugging in and doing all the switchboard stuff. That's the old phone service. You plug it in, talk to somebody, plug it in, and it would switch the lines to go from place to place. So it's crazy when you think about what we have now versus like laptops, touch screen. Like who in here, and I've done this a couple of times with people who brought computers in, I go to touch the screen and I go, no, it's not a touch screen. Has anybody in here by any chance, and I'll just throw myself under the bus because I've done this, seen a photo, an actual picture or something, not on a phone, and done this with your fingers to like, you're like, oh, wait a second, that's an actual piece of paper. I can't do that to the. The other one that happens from time to time, I'm listening to the radio and I miss something. Yes, there's something called the radio. And I go, oh, I want to hear that again. And I go to like rewind it. Like, oh wait, I can't rewind it. It's over. It's now going away.
Yeah.
There's a comedian I watched too in regards to Netflix. Who in here has watched Friends? Okay. Now, do you know how long it took me to watch all of the episodes? Yes.
Oh my god.
You know how long it took me to watch all 10 seasons?
I don't know.
10 years.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Right? How long did it take you to watch? Or you watched?
It took me because I got to like season 7 before they took it off on Netflix, and then I got mad.
Yeah. Right. So, but how long did it take you to get through season 7?
It took me about like maybe a couple, maybe 2-3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Not bad.
During the whole shutdown, I watched all of House seasons 1 through 8 in 3 weeks. Right.
I got through.
And think about the technology that we have, and that's just the simple stuff.
I got through a whole like 8 seasons of Arrow and like not even during this whole
Yeah.
time.
Hulu, and that's the thing too. Has anybody noticed what they started to do with programs that they're releasing now? They did this with Mandalorian. That was the first one I caught this.
Yeah.
They give you all 8 episodes now.
Well, they release them like week by week, like every Friday they release
Yeah.
them. And they're
Because-
already doing it. That was the new series for Marvel.
Why are they doing that now? What are they realizing is happening? They're binge watching it and they're done, and they move to another app or they move to another. So if I give you 2, right? So that's what they did with Mandalorian. They gave you the first 2,
Yeah.
and then like they did the same thing on Disney Plus with
They're doing it with new.
it's the new Marvel one,
WandaVision.
WandaVision.
Yes.
They gave you the first 2, and now next week they'll give you another one.
Yeah, they give you
another
another one.
Okay, so most of you guys have this written down, so let me just kind of talk about what it means. One of the things that we are doing very, very well with now is because scarcity still exists, we're trying to reinvent stuff and reuse things so that we're not reinventing the wheel, 1. 2, we already have the resources. Why don't we just use it for something else as well, right? So we look at like our the books that I have or here comes along with not only just the books, but now they're saying, hey, listen, we're going to put that book online for you, right? And then if you don't have enough, like it used to be that every single one of my students would get a book at the beginning of the year. So you would take a book home and you have that book, and that would be your resource. Well, why do we do that when you have technology available? And now there's even some of the book services are providing apps. You can download the app and pull the app up and work your book on the app, which I'm waiting for Pearson to finally somehow get there. They're on the verge of it, so that you guys don't have to pull the computer out to work. You can just pull your app up and work on the app. Right, so we're looking at reusing stuff. But when I look at this, I came across this one right here. Work. There we go. Things that we recycle that I was kind of amazed that we recycle. We do. Kitty litter is something that's recyclable. So you'll see versions of kitty litter, a lot of plastic-based kitty litters. Soaps, which is kind of weird. A lot of the soap companies will take the old ones, or the hotels, they'll take the old ones, clean them up, repurpose them, and then send them to like third world nations that need soap. Or they'll repackage in certain ways, not like use. They'll like melt them back down again and clean them up. Asphalt's a big one. Trophies, simple, but you can replace trophies. Special Olympics does this a lot. They'll take old trophies and take the tops off and put new tops on. Your down jackets, a lot of insulation in them. Those are all things, a lot of the metals that are being used for cars, tennis balls, playgrounds, anything plastic, like all this stuff is probably recycled plastic in some way, shape, or form. Bats, bricks, sleeping bags, curtains, coffins. I'll leave you with a coffin one. Ponder that one as you leave. See you tomorrow, folks.